Thank you very much, Chairman Leahy, for those kind words of introduction, Ranking Member Sessions, and to all my colleagues on the important Judiciary Committee at this important moment. Members of the committee, Mr. Chairman, 16 years ago I had the privilege to introduce Stephen Breyer to this committee. And with the loss today of Senator Byrd, I'm particularly reminded of Senator Kennedy sitting beside me that day. As you all know better than anybody, Senator Kennedy served on this committee for 46 years. And I know the pride he would feel seeing Elena Kagan nominated for the Supreme Court of the United States. When Ted introduced then Judge Breyer, he quoted Oliver Wendell Holmes, that every calling is great when greatly pursued. Those words applied to Stephen Breyer, and I can share with you my complete and total confidence that they apply equally to Solicitor General Elena Kagan. Massachusetts is proud, Mr. Chairman, of Elena Kagan's accomplishments, and we believe that through these hearings, as each of you get to know her as we do, she will earn broad bipartisan support, just as she did when she was nominated as Solicitor General. By now, every one of us has heard many times repeated, and you know well, the high points of her record, a trailblazing pace culminating in her selection as the first woman to serve as the Dean of Harvard Law School and the first woman to serve as Solicitor General. If confirmed, she will make history once again. In an America where women comprise more than half the population, she will join Justices Ginsburg and Sotomayor, and for the first time in our history, a full third of the United States Supreme Court will be women. But there's much more that distinguishes Elena. Her life has really been characterized by her passion for public service and her awareness of what it means to be a good public citizen. A close friend from her days clerking for Justice Marshall remembers Elena interviewing at a big law firm in New York, meeting with a young partner who, with no family to support, was pulling in close to $1 million a year. So Elena asked him, "What do you do with all that money?" And he replied, "I buy art." Elena just shook her head in the conviction that there really were better ways to expend her life's work, and she continued to pursue efforts to more directly impact the lives of those around her. Her skills and intellect very quickly came to the attention of the Clinton White House, which is when I first got to know her. I'd been asked by the chairman of the Commerce Committee, Senator Hollings, our old friend, to help break through a stalemate on a bipartisan tobacco bill. It was a difficult issue for both caucuses. Elena became the administration's point person. And when we started out, no one gave us any hope of being close to or getting close to passage. But Elena camped out in the vice president's office off the Senate floor, shuttling back and forth to the White House. She worked day and night, equally with both sides of the aisle, working every angle, thinking through every single approach. And on the eve of the Commerce Committee's markup, things appeared to be falling apart, something we're all too familiar with here. But Elena simply wasn't going to let that happen. That was an unacceptable outcome. She got together with the Republican senators and staff, and she listened carefully, and she helped all of us to meet the last-minute objections. It was classic Elena. She saw a path forward when most people saw nothing but deadlock, and it led to a 19-to-1 vote to pass the bill out of committee, a mark of bipartisanship, consensus building that few believed was possible. That's what I believe Elena Kagan will bring to the court. She was tough and tenacious in argument when necessary, but she also knew when it was necessary to strike a compromise. She had a knack for knowing how to win people over, an ability to make people see the wisdom of an argument. I remember lots of late nights in a very quiet Capitol building, walking off the Senate floor to meet with my staff and Elena, and invariably, Elena would be the one to have a new idea, a fresh approach. It was a tutorial in consensus building from someone for whom it was pure instinct, and it won Elena the respect of Republicans and Democrats alike. No doubt, her hands-on experience working the governance process is actually, in this day and age and in this moment of the court, probably an enormous asset. Frankly, I think it's a critical component of what makes her a terrific choice. Someone who really understands how laws are created and the real-world effects of their implementation. It's a reminder of why some of the greatest justices in our history were not judges before they sat on the court. And among those are names like Frankfurter and Brandeis. I might add that she brought the same pragmatic knack for consensus building to her stewardship at Harvard Law School. There she found what was affectionately acknowledged, I emphasize affectionately acknowledged, as a dysfunctional and divided campus, and she transformed it again into a cohesive institution, winning praise from students and faculty across the ideological spectrum. Elizabeth Warren, Elena's colleague at Harvard and chair of the congressional panel currently overseeing our economic relief efforts, says simply, she changed morale around here. Charles Freed, the former Solicitor General under President Reagan and renowned conservative constitutional expert, says of her prospects as a justice on the Supreme Court, quote, I think Elena would be terrific because, frankly, the court is stuck. The great thing about Elena is there's a freshness about her that promises some possibility of getting away from the formulas that are wheeled out today on both sides. I have no reservations about her whatsoever. John Manning, the first hire under Kagan's deanship, a conservative and an expert on textualism and separation of powers, says, I think one of the things you see in Kagan as dean was that she tried to hire folks with different approaches to law and different ideological perspectives. She was equally as strong in her praise for Scalia as she was in her praise for Breyer. She celebrated both. It's a good predictor of how she'll be as a judge. She would be fair and impartial, the sort of judge who would carefully consider briefing and argument in every case, the sort of judge I would want if I didn't know which side of the case I was arguing. And so in closing, my colleagues, I'm glad that in these next days you're going to get a chance to know Elena, as so many of us have in Massachusetts, the way she thinks, her approach to the law, an extremely capable public servant, well-grounded in the Constitution, and I assure you, deeply committed to the values that we all share as Americans.
Thank you.
I always remember what Justice Potter Stewart said about what makes a first-rate judge. He said, the mark of a good judge is a judge whose opinion you can read and have no idea if the judge was a man or a woman, Republican or Democrat, a Christian or Jew. You just know he or she was a good judge. I believe Elena Kagan will meet that standard, and I have every confidence that she'll be an outstanding justice of the Supreme Court in every sense of the word. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the privilege of introducing this superb nominee.